Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, Jaya Guru Raya. We hope you had a refreshing break. We would like to now invite Dr. R. Geet Sudhir to present his technical talk. A small introduction about him. Dr. R. Geet Sudhir is a distinguished practitioner in the field of Siddha medicine. He holds a diverse academic background with a bachelor's in Siddha medicine and surgery, an MSc in genetics, and a PhD specializing in the characterization of Siddha formulations. Additionally, he holds an MD in Siddha and has established a successful practice in Tirunelveli. With a notable track record, Dr. Sudhir has achieved a high success rate in treating COVID patients through the application of Siddha medicine, showcasing his dedication to advancing healthcare using traditional medicine. Furthermore, Dr. Sudhir's passion extends beyond medicine. He is a fitness enthusiast, an avid cyclist, covering hundreds of kilometers on his cycle for days on end. His commitment to both wellness and medicine reflects a holistic approach to health and healing. Dr. Sudhir's roots in Siddha medicine run deep. He is the son of the renowned Siddha physician, Dr. Rajashekar, adding a rich familial heritage to his professional journey. A humanitarian at heart, Dr. Sudhir has, even in recent times, been very actively involved in the flood relief efforts in the Thoothukudi area. Doctor, we are really, really blessed to have you here with us today. We invite you to now present your technical talk. Jai Bhagavan Yogi Ram Surat Kumar.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk about most of the people, they have a fear that almost all kind of traditional medicine, they use herbometallic drugs. So among this, mercury, lead, arsenic, and all those metals which are very much toxic, which are considered to be very much toxic, are used as medications here. So there is a very great fear among the public whether these metallic drugs can be taken, whether this will be safe for me, or whether it will cause any short-term side effects, or whether it will be associated with any long-term side effects. This lecture is basically designed to address all these questions. Okay. So before getting into the actual lecture, let me submit my Guru Vanakam to all my mentors first. The first one is Dr. Rajashekar. He is my father, and he was the one who taught me what exactly the Siddha is, how it has to be practiced. And the next one is Dr. Jayaseelan, and he was the one who taught me how to prepare the metallic medicines in a more efficient way. And the next one is Dr. G. Sendil Kumar. He is my classmate, and he is also a traditional practitioner. So he was the one who taught me how to practice them in a more efficient way. And then the next person is Dr. T.G. Vasudevan. He was my tutor in Manipal University, and he taught me all the cell biology techniques. Then Dr. Nilesh Malpure, he is actually a taxonomist. In fact, he is very popular among the botanists because he has named more than some 30 plants. He has identified and named more than 30 plants. So then Dr. Ruchi Singh, he was the one who taught me the cell biology techniques. And the last two are Dr. Brinda and Dr. Ramanathan sir. These two are my PhD supervisors. Okay, so after submitting my Guru Vanakam to them, let me proceed with the actual talk. So usage of metals and minerals in traditional medicine has been, this is documented in almost all system of medicine. But here I have mentioned few which has been in the Indian system of medicine. As far as Siddha is concerned, we have three eminent people who have worked on it. One is Bogar, the other one is Agasthyar, and the other one is Yakobu or there is another name for him, Ramadevar. The story tells that the Ramadevar traveled from south to the Middle East and he changed his name to Yakobu to learn the alchemical text from them. And as far as the Ayurveda is concerned, the external usage of mercury has been recorded in Charaka and Sushruta, whereas the internal usage of mercury is known from the Ashtanga Shamhraka. But the exact dates of these, these personalities are debatable. But what I have mentioned here is the one as per the book, Alchemical Body. So, though we have the records of the usage of metals and minerals in many of the traditional literature, the first record of the metal usage comes in Western biomedicine only during the latest part of the 15th century. The picture which I have shown here is Paracelsus. He was the one to introduce chemistry in medicine. Before his age, the practice of medicine was in such a way that only the plants and animal products were used to treat people. But metals and minerals were not introduced into the treatment aspect. He was the one who first introduced the chemistry in medicine. So he used various metals, iron, lead, copper, antimony and mercury to treat diseases. And here one interesting thing is he had something very similar to the Indian system of medicine. He believed more in astrology. And he believed in the Traya Prima. Traya Prima is something like the concept of alchemy where they use. There they consider mercury as a male and sulfur as a female. And the combination of the two as the salt. So similar kind of concepts we have in Siddha. But in Siddha we consider mercury as a male, but Abraham as a female. So that's the difference what we have in Siddha. I guess the same kind of concept exists in Ayurveda too. And then the Abraham. Okay. So, and he also believed in three principles caused the ailment. At that stage, this concept of humoral, that is Vata Pitta Kapha, existed in almost all system of medicine, but of course in a different name. When you look into the Persian system of medicine, they divided it into 4 different humerals. Whereas in case of Chinese, they have yin-yang, 2 different humors. But this kind of humoral concept existed in almost all system of medicine. Whereas the Indian system of medicine, they believed in the 3 humor concept. Whereas the other system, they had their own divisions. So, and in most of the cases, he used to treat infectious diseases with the mercury. And he was the one who first described that infections are caused due to the organisms, and he started using metallic medicines on that. And his contribution to the system of modern medicine is also high. And he worked initially as a physician in military, and after that what he did is like, for 6 to 7 years, he was in a travel. People doesn't know where he traveled, and again then he came back and he proposed all these kind of philosophies, and he was the one who first opposed Galen. Before that, Galen's theories were accepted by everyone, and the people are following only Galen's concept of medicine and treatment. But he was the one who first opposed it, and after that, the perspective of the medicine changed. Like they started using metals and minerals in medicine, and he was the one first to introduce in Western medicine. And then I should mention Benjamin Rush, because he was the one who is a government physician and a very influential person who used mercury to a very great extent. He commonly used mercury for 2 purposes. One is infection. Here I have mentioned yellow fever. The other one is to control vomiting. So for the 2 purposes, he has used this. He used mercury for this. And the map here I have shown is there is something called Lewis and Clark expedition in history. In the beginning of the 18th century, United States, it purchased Louisiana, but they just want to explore how the Louisiana is and just mark the borders of it. So what they did is like they sent a group of people, around some 35 people, under the leadership of Lewis and Clark to explore the entire area. But the problem which they faced at that time is yellow fever. I mean, the yellow fever, in order to protect themselves from yellow fever, Benjamin Rush, he formulated a specific combination which include calomel and jalab. Jalab is a kind of plant that existed at that time, and he just mixed both the things, and he made a pills out of it. And he gave the troop of the 35 to 40 people to take it regularly. They stayed in almost some 600 places, and what the historians have done after that is, wherever they stayed, that particular places where they had the toilets, they had a high quantity of mercury in that. So based on the mercury level in the soil, the historians were able to identify that these are the places where they have stayed. But they used it to prevent from yellow fever. But one evidence what we can hear from this is like it has been used extensively, but still none of the members of the troop got affected or they fell sick. And the mercury in their feces is also traceable even very lately. So then I would like to say about this J. Hamilton, because he published a book in 1819, Observations on the Use and Abuse of Mercurial Medicines in Various Diseases. Here, he supports the usage of mercury in glandular affections, chronic rheumatism, and chronic skin eruptions. But he doesn't support the usage of mercury in diarrhea and infections. Because at that time, if you want to prove yourself to be a very great physician, you have to cure a minimum of some 2-3 diseases which were considered to be non-curable. The one is syphilis, the other one will be elephantiasis, then other one will be like any of the pandemic that existed at that time, includes yellow fever too. So if you are able to demonstrate that you can cure any of the 3 diseases, then you will be considered as a high quality physician. So this J. Hamilton, he was known for this particular, he used mercury in various aspects, but he just criticized the usage of mercury in infections, which is quite contrary to the other practicing physicians at that time. So when he published this particular book, there were refutations from other physicians on this. I have just quoted the 2 refutations here. The one is from James Clark, where he has just said that the Hamilton has committed glaring blunders. So because at that time it was believed that only the mercury-based medicines helped in curing the yellow fever. And the next one is like the Dr. Mills, what he says is like even if the Dr. Hamilton was against it, the usage of mercury cannot be stopped because it keeps on treating and curing the infections. So I mention all these things just to make it clear that even in recent past, the usage of mercury was very common, even among the Western medicine. But when, what was the reason for it to change now? The first thing is discovery of antibiotics. So before the discovery of antibiotics, the only way to treat infectious disease is mercury-based medicines. Because even now, the antibiotics work only with the bacterial infections. If it is a viral infections, again, the modern medicine doesn't have a proper drug of choice. Because if you want to treat a viral infection, you have to kill your own body cells. Only then you can treat a viral infection, which is really very difficult for them to treat. That is why whenever you speak to a Western medicine doctor, they used to say that a viral infection is a self-limiting infection. That is, your body will cure itself in a short period of time, so you don't need to take any medicines. That is what they advise. But actually, when you get admitted for a viral fever or something, you will be treated with almost all the antibiotics. They'll try all kind of medications what they have with them. So the problem is, whenever the infection is concerned, before the discovery of antibiotics, the only option what they had is mercury-based medicine. But when they had an alternative, that antibiotic discovery was in 1929, and it became more popular and available in 1950s. So after that, the usage of mercury has reduced because the antibiotic usage has been dominated. So even at that time, here you can see they have used in different conditions. The one is when they have abstain vomiting. Abstain vomiting, the vomiting could be due to many reasons, but when you get your brain affected, that is when the encephalopathy develops in an infection, you will have an uncontrolled vomiting, which cannot be controlled by any medications. But even at that time, even after the discovery of mercury, the people have been using this for controlling vomiting. Okay. So now, at present, we are in the antibiotic era. But for the past 2 to 3 decades, there were only very limited number of antibiotics that has been discovered new. So almost like we are running out of antibiotics because the organisms are evolving, and due to the high mutation rate, there are many strains which are not responding to the antibiotics. We call it as drug resistant strains. So there could be like multiple drug resistant strains, and there are some totally drug resistant strains too. TB, which we think that which is completely curable now, may become non-curable probably in very 1 or 2 decades, because that is due to the crude usage of antibiotics and the antibiotic resistant TB development. Okay, so what I mean here is like we are traveling very fast to the post-antibiotic era. So when we go to the post-antibiotic era, definitely the treatment of almost all the bacterial infections will become very difficult. So if we are in the post-antibiotic era, definitely we can't do any surgery, because if you do a surgery, the chances of getting a bacterial infection is very high. Only as we have antibiotics now, we are able to do surgery for almost even the very small ailments. But when it comes to the post-antibiotic era, all this will become difficult. At present, the people are working on only these 3 things: herbal products and novel vaccine developments for the different bacteria, and then the usage of bacteriophages and the associated enzymes. But I would say the next drug of choice could be herbometallic drugs for this. Because as we have antibiotics now, we are not concentrating much on the herbometallic drugs, but when we run out of antibiotics, definitely we have to look into this. So before getting into the actual talk, I'll just give an introduction of different forms of mercury now, because many people believe that all forms of mercury are toxic, and if I take mercury in any form, that will definitely harm me. So there are 3 forms of mercury. One is elemental mercury, the other one is organic mercury, and the other is inorganic mercury. Among this, elemental mercury in oral intake is non-toxic because the absorption level is 0. But when you are inhaling it, that is when you are heating it and inhaling it, it is severely neurotoxic, and followed by the neurotoxicity, it will create the multiple organ failures in a very short period of time, because it can pass through all the biological barriers too. Then the organic form of mercury. Organic form of mercury is a more toxic form of mercury when taken orally. And it can readily cross all the blood-brain barriers and other biological barriers too. Inorganic form of mercury, theoretically speaking, it is not toxic. But what happens in the sense, in your intestine, the bacteria converts the inorganic form of mercury into organic form of mercury. So there is a possibility of absorption, which is like 3 to 9% absorption. So I mean, when you compare this, elemental form of mercury has 0% absorption, whereas organic form has almost 100% absorption, and the inorganic form has 3 to 9%, which varies depending on your microbiota composition in your gut. So what exactly this mercury do in your body? This mercury has a high affinity towards the sulfhydryl linkages. So what it does is, like, once it enters your body, it actually detaches the sulfhydryl linkages and gets into it. So whatever amino acids has high sulfhydryl linkages will get affected, and the proteins made out of these amino acids will get more affected. So almost all the enzymes, hormones, and everything will get affected when you take mercury. And whenever you speak about mercury and the limitations, people always say there is something called WHO limit. But before that, we'll see what exactly WHO has done on the limitations on the intake of mercury. So here you can see the first time the provisional intake, weekly tolerance intake was established in 1972. That was due to the effect of the Miyamata disease that happened in Japan. Hope you all know what is a Miyamata disease. In Japan, there is a island where Miyamata Island, where it got polluted by the industrial waste. So the industrial waste which had a high quantity of mercury, the people are consuming the fish from that particular locality, and all those people got affected. I mean, almost 3 to 4 generations got affected due to this. So based on that, initially they established the provisional weekly intake of mercury. But when they established it initially, it was not for the entire total mercury. It was only for the organic form of mercury, that was specifically methyl mercury. But later, many times the recommendations were done to reassess it and change it, but they have reassessed periodically, but they didn't change it up to 2004. We'll see what exactly happened in the 2004 and what was the reason for them to revise it and change it. And from 2004, they revised the methyl mercury levels and they established another level for the total quantity of mercury too. Okay. So here I have mentioned 3 papers. The one was published in 2004 by Robert K. Sapir. So when this particular paper was published, there were only 55 to 60 cases of intoxication by heavy metal associated with the traditional medicine were reported. When this paper was, what he has exactly done is like, I mean, in the Western literature, I'm just telling, sir. Not out of a specific population. What I have mentioned is like overall search, what I have done in the literature. So it was published in the 2004. What he has done is like he ordered online around some 150 Ayurvedic drugs. Then he ran the elemental analysis for all those drugs using AAS. So, and the results what he published is like among the 150 drugs, around 70% of the drug had more quantity of either lead, arsenic or mercury or any of this or all the 3 together more than the WHO permissible limits. That is what he published, and it was a very simple study, but it was published in JAMA, and this actually lead to a very great change. It's like the European countries, they change their policies itself. And in fact, that affected the Indian economy in such a way that they banned almost most of the herbal exports from here. So the continuation of that particular paper was published in 2008. Even here they did the same kind of analysis. They just did the elemental analysis and they published that the total quantity of mercury in these particular drugs are little more. That is what they published. But later the same author, Robert K. Sapir, authored a paper in 2011. This is the place where they access the bioaccessibility of it. So initially what they have published is just how much quantity of mercury is present in that particular drugs, or mercury, lead or arsenic, or all the 3. But only after some 2004 and 2011, or after some 7-8 years, he engaged in research of analyzing how much of them is actually bioavailable. So here it was like almost 7%. But when you look into the 2004 paper, you'll be surprised to see that in lot of drugs which actually doesn't involve the addition of mercury in it, had high mercury level or arsenic level or lead level. Probably that should be due to either the contamination or the packing defects, or it could be anything, but the results were very much surprising. But even now, when you look into the literature, you'll have more than some 3,500 citations for the first 2 papers, whereas less than 100 citations for the last one. So it's like it's been projected in such a way that, okay, the mercury is highly toxic just by a very basic research, and actual bioaccessibility paper was not highlighted in a better way even now. Okay, so then I move on to what exactly is the problem associated with understanding this HMPs. So I have categorized into 3 sections here. The one is like the exact epistemological and pedagogical difference between both the medicines. Rama Jayasundar ma'am already described a part of it. Maybe I'll also go through a slide part of it. So there is a very huge difference between the 2 systems of medicine. As far as the disease approach is concerned, Siddha medicine or as well as Ayurveda medicine, always they they always concentrate only on the host response. That is, biomedicine, which is based on the germ theory, what it believes is like, if I get exposed to a particular organism, I'll get infected by a particular disease. This is what they believe in. But whereas the host response theory, what it states is, I'll be always surrounded by an organism. Only if my host response is low, I'll get infected, or else I won't get infected. So here, the treatment approach in such a way that it regulates your host response, not destroy the cause. But whereas there, it will be in such a way that it actually addresses the cause. The big difference is like, the cause will keep on evolving. So you have to keep on changing the solutions very often. But the host response, you can just manipulate it very easily. That is why we use the Vata Pitta Kapha here. So the host response, we regulate it using Vata Pitta Kapha, and it is very easy to handle with multiple diseases. So when the people ask, okay, COVID is a new disease, how do you address it? Of course, the COVID is a new disease, but your host response and your body is not new. We have analyzed it a lot, and we know how to handle it, and we know how to address it. That is how we address it. Okay, so this is the very basic difference, and this has to be considered before just thinking about what happened. Okay. So next, I'm just describing the exact research what I've done during my PhD. So I worked on a herbometallic drug, and I was working on the like pharmacokinetics of the particular drug. That is, where does this drug go and where does this drug get deposited. So this is the details of the drug called Gandhachanduram, which I have worked on. Here, what exactly happened is like, I have induced a disease in in these animal groups. So the disease is induced. That is, this acetylphenylhydrazine, it destroys the WBC. RBCs, and the hemolysis is clinically characterized by these symptoms which I have shown here. So then what I did is like, I gave the particular trial drug which I was working on to the animals. And in order to know what exactly and where exactly the drug is going, what I did is like, I analyzed the feces and also the soft organs for the deposition. But the result of this study is really like interesting, and of course I would say also confusing, because the result of this study is like, there is 0% absorption, but the animals recovered from the disease. So here we had a question, if their absorption is 0, how come the animals recover? Then we had two theories. The one is the Trojan horse mechanism, and the other is microbiome. So as you all know, in Siddha system of medicine and also in Ayurveda system of medicine, we use a single drug with different anupanams. Anupanams is like the same drug we used to ask them to consume in milk, or we ask them to consume in ghee, or you ask them to consume in any of the kashayam. So which means that only if you change the anupanam, the exact activity will change. So the one possible mechanism what we proposed here is like, the actual activity of the particular drug should be like the anupanam. For example, honey itself has 81 flavonoids, which have almost all the activities. But when you take honey as such, the entire honey will be easily digested. So you won't get the activity of it. But when you mix it with the particular drug, and if you take it, that particular drug helps in the active transfer of the exact molecules which helps you to recover from the disease. That is the one hypothesis what we propose, and the other one is the microbiome. That is, as you know, the bacteria which will do, good cause bacteria which exist in your gut, that also helps to, keep you healthy. So probably the other reason could be like, this particular drug would have had its effect in the microbiome and would have excreted in the feces. So, here the point is like, when you want to analyze a particular drug and activity of it, the methods or the parameters which has been established for another system of medicine won't help here. That's what I just want to express it. Because what we are, what we are forced to do is like, we are forced to prove the traditional system of medicine using the parameters that has been framed or developed for Western biosystem of medicine, which are two different. So then I would say there is something called lack of legitimized traditional knowledge, because what I mean here is like Naga. This Naga in Siddha actually mean zinc, but whereas Naga in Ayurveda it means lead. But initially I was thinking, what could be the reason for this? Why you have a same name for two different things? But later I came to know that lead and zinc actually occurs together as a ore. So it's like only you have to separate it using smelting in the later process. But when I look into the ancient Siddha texts, there they have mentioned like how it has to be extracted from particular places and everything. But the later text, and especially the textbooks what we follow, there they mention, there they started using the name zinc. So it's like here you have, I mean, when you just try to take the classical literatures in the textbooks, there are a lot of mistakes which they have done. So this is one particular problem we are exactly facing. And then here I have mentioned about the how to authenticate a particular traditional drug. This is Gandham. So in the text, it has been written that it should be authenticated based on the needle test. So according to Bogar Elayiram, it should hold a minimum of 7 needles, and according to Agasthyar Pannirayiram, it has to hold a minimum of 21 needles. But again, this actually represents the quality of the magnetic property it has. But when when I just analyzed, when I just collected the exact particular raw material and analyzed it, the composition of it was entirely different. It had silica in it, it had iron oxide in it, and it had other impurities too. But when you look into the textbooks, what we follow in the colleges, there they have written that it's like Gandham, it exactly means magnetite. So these kind of, I mean, like unlegitimized translations was also the reason for this. Okay. So the last one is the therapeutic dose what we use. This is a result of one of the study which I did during my MD. So here, in order to test the toxicity level of the drug which I use, PCM here means Panjasuda Maliga, which is a drug which has almost all 5 forms of mercury. So at the therapeutic dose, we didn't face any toxicity at all. And if it is a 5 times therapeutic dose, here you can see the abdomen part of this rat is swollen. That is due to the severe hepatosplenomegaly. But this hepatosplenomegaly, it resolved in a very short period of time, probably 5-6 days. And at 10 times therapeutic dose, you can see the severe neurotoxicity here. That is, it started shivering, and you can see the dilation of the pupil, and the particular animal almost, I mean, in the high dose group, we had almost 20 animals, among which only one survived the second day. So almost all the animals died in 1.5 days. So the last one which I want to mention here is like the pharma companies and the quality consistency, what they maintain here. So this study, it was done by me almost 3 years back. Here what I've done is like I purchased the particular drug Arumugachanduram from 5 different pharmas, and I analyzed the quality consistency of those drugs. So here this Arumugachanduram basically has Rasam, Gandhakam, Kandam, Ayam, Indupu, and Vengaram. And the chemical composition of those are also mentioned here. So what I did is like I purchased from all these 5 different pharmas, and then I did an elemental analysis. So when you go through the elemental analysis, it was supposed to have mercury in it, but except the pharma 5, all others doesn't even have a traces of mercury in it. And you could see the difference in the sulfur, iron, oxygen, silica, sodium, chlorine, and calcium levels here. So the take-home message here is like 5 different pharma which was supposed to give you the drug of the same quality is actually not giving you, I mean, not even 2 pharma are similar here. And the more surprising fact is like only 1 pharma is actually adding the actual raw materials. Others not even adding the exact raw materials. This is just a basic elemental composition analysis. But if we would have gone through speciation and other analysis, we would have got more surprising results too. So here I just wish to conclude that the mercury-based medicines are really very much effective, But right now we have few issues that has to be addressed in a very proper way to practice it in an efficient way. Okay, thank you. Okay, now it's open to questions. Yeah.
Hello, check.
You mentioned that the absorption rate of mercury depends on your gut biome.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you regulate your dose without knowing what is the person's particular gut biome composition is?
Here, this is the place where this Vata Pitta Kapha comes into picture. So basically, there are few medications which are like which can easily produce adverse reactions if there is a small change in quantity. For example, there is something called Chandamarda Chanduram, which actually is a fully organic form of mercury because that doesn't involve any calcination process. So when we handle it, when we use a Chandamarda Chanduram, out of 10 people, 1 or 2 people will have oral ulcers and some may get itching, so which is actually an adverse drug reactions. But if we were able to, when we do the Nadi Pariksha, if we were able to make it clear that the levels of Vata and Pitta are, to the required level, this allergic reactions is not happening. It's like what I mean to say that clinically we were able to differentiate whether these people will show some adverse reactions or this people doesn't show any adverse reactions in a more efficient way. So it's like it's clinically it can be differentiated. Though I can't say that the microbiome, because if you want to measure the level of microbiomes, you have to do the DNA sequencing. So that's not practically possible, but clinically it can be accessed.
But maybe there could also be a study on having a correlation with this and then publish with different trials.
Yeah, I can understand that, but again here it's like there are few studies which were related with this, like microbiome and Vata Pitta Kapha, there were few studies. But they are a very preliminary one and we need a very detailed study on those. Okay.
Sir, can you share the name of the manufacturer that actually...
No, I mean, at this point, I can, no. Because it's like, actually, I purchased from 13 manufacturers, and among the 13 manufacturers, outrightly I rejected the other 7, because other 8 actually, because that doesn't even qualify, even by the look you can say, okay, it is a unqualified one. So it's like, this is really a very big problem which we are facing. Because in case of allopathy medications, once the medicines comes to the market, within a period of some 3 to 5 years, the pharmacopoeial standards of the medicine has to be published in the Indian Pharmacopoeia. But such kind of pharmacopoeial regulations are still now not established in Siddha and Ayurveda. In fact, Pharmacopoeia Laboratory of Indian Medicine was formed in 1970s, I guess, to establish pharmacopoeia for Indian medicines. But practical problem what they faced is the usage of herbometallic drugs, not only herbometallic drugs, let us say a herbal drug, even a single drug. So if I'm going to collect a particular plant from this locality, and I'm going to collect the same plant from a different locality, and probably even the same locality, I'm going to collect the same plant in different seasons, the composition is actually varying. So the problem is the pharmacovigilance could not be established in traditional drugs based on the pharmacopoeial vigilance parameters established for the Western biomedicine drugs. So ideally, even if I am going to make a complaint on this, stating that, okay, see, there is no quality consistency, they need a standard to compare it. So say I have worked on the 13 pharmas. So I'm just saying there is no quality consistency. So people have to decide which one is correct, right? Which one is standard one. They don't have a standard for that. So even if I file a complaint, I won't be in a position to, at least sue them. Okay.
There are already a lot of hospital bacteria which are resistant to antibiotic.
Yeah.
So have you tried any of these medicines? You said the future is plant and metal-based
Okay.
drugs. So
Okay.
have you tried at least at the lab level to see any reaction?
The problem is like,
sensitivities there?
okay, I mean, you could complete your question.
Have you tried it at a lab level to, if not at a commercial level, at least the preliminary studies have you done to see whether there is any sensitivity to these bacteria to the plant and metal-based drugs? Thank
Okay. So basically what you are asking is like whether you have tried or checked for the antibacterial activity of this particular bacteria on lab level. But that is what initially I told. The traditional drugs, it works mostly on the host response. Nevertheless, I have tried it. I have tried with almost some 35 to 40 drugs which we use it for infection. The MIC, the minimal inhibitory concentration, what we generally used to do. For almost like some 30 to 40 strains I tried. But except one or two formulations, none of them worked on that. At least in lab basis, I'm telling you. But being a practicing clinician, I have treated various bacterial infections, skin infections, which are more resistant to the antibiotics, will get cured miraculously in a very short period of time, say some 5 to 10 days. Whereas the people would have taken for the medications for it for years. So clinically, I'm very sure it is working better. But the fact is, like as I've already told, if you want to demonstrate it, the parameters that has been established for the Western biomedicine is not sufficient. So different parameters has to be established for this, in case if you want to demonstrate it. But as ma'am told, I strongly agree with her, because it's like all these years we have been just trying to convince the Western people that this is good. But why should we convince them? If it is really good, people will follow. Because after completing my UG, I was into research for almost 10 years. Trying to convince the people, okay, this is good, please accept it. But whenever I went for any presentation or something, all I got is criticism. But when I went back, I saw my father practicing. He was also practicing, he was a Siddha practitioner for the past 60 years almost. Sorry, not 60 years, around some 45 to 50 years. So when I went there, I have seen allopathy doctors from very reputed institutions, Tirunelveli Medical College. Tirunelveli Medical College, the head of the departments, even the dean and his family used to come and get treatment from him. And when they used to come and get treatment from him, he used to clearly say, see, this has this much quantity of mercury and this has this much quantity of arsenic, and everything he'll explain. Their only response will be, see, if I get cured, I'll take it. That is the response. So what I understood from that is like, if the drug work efficiently, people will follow you. So that includes the Western biomedicine people too. So there is no need for us to demonstrate that this is, because it is very difficult to demonstrate with their parameters. What they are expecting is like we have to demonstrate it in their language or the parameters that has been established by them and for them. So that's practically very difficult. Okay. Thank you.